Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is time for our Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening devotion. I try to get it done a little early so it's not just, something I've delivered to you right off the top of my head, although sometimes that does happen. But I wanted to share some things with you because, ever since I was a kid, and that's been a long time ago now, churches have talked about revival. I remember I grew up going to the First Baptist Church of Nyota, and I remember we were having revival services once, and they sent us out across the vast metropolis that is Nyota, knocking on door after door, handing out flyers, inviting people to come. And I was just, I don't know. I may have been 10, 11, may not have been that old. I don't remember now exactly what the year was. But we wanted people to come because we were having revival. And, the services came and went. And I suppose, I don't remember the crowd, but I remember that the guy who was the preacher taught us how to sing Jesus Loves Me in another language. And the only thing I remember of that is Yesu Wandita. If you know what that means, then you identify the language, then good for you. But just an example of how we've talked about revival for a long time. Churches still have revival services, and they'll talk about, we had pretty good revival. And I'm not disparaging that. Please don't hear me wrong. I'm not being critical of that. Not in the least. But what I do criticize is our understanding of revival. Now, I just got to notice I have a slow connection. I don't know why, but that's what they told me. So if things kind of get fuzzy on your end, it's not you, it's me. I always look like this. But what should we expect from revival? If God were to bless the church in America with genuine revival, what I like to think of in terms of a deep moving of the Spirit of God that's unprompted by what we do, and we don't go knocking on doors and we don't hand out flyers and we do all those kind of things to draw a crowd, but that this is revival where God moves in the church in such a way is that he gets the attention of the unbelieving world and makes them go, what in the world is going on over there? What should we look for? And I was been praying about this for a while, and I read a psalm, try to read a psalm every day. And today I read Psalm 85, and I think I found in this God showing me that this is what we should look for. One of the things, verse 10 of Psalm 85 says, because this is a prayer for revival. The psalmist is praying, Lord, you did this in the past. Won't you please do it again? And so he was praying for revival. And he says in verse 10, steadfast love and faithfulness meet. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. I think revival then restores to us the overwhelming sense of God's great love for us. He prays in the psalm down here in verse 7, show us your steadfast love, O Lord. Well, God has shown us his love. Romans 5:8, remember, says that God demonstrates his love for us and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. But we lose sight of that in the day-to-day, what some people call the daily grind. We lose sight of the intensity, the fervency, and the steadfastness of God's love for us. We need to be reminded of that. That God loved us enough to send his Son to die for us. When we say, we shouldn't, maybe this is just a stretch, but I don't think we should ever be able to say that flippantly. We say that and go, in the greatest of reverence, almost hushed tones, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. But it's not just that. It's faithfulness, where we are reminded in revival that the fruit of revival, maybe that's what I should say about this. This is the fruit of real revival. One is steadfast love. The second one is faithfulness. God's faithfulness to us, yes. Steadfast love of the Lord. Lamentations 3:22 and 23 says that the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are made new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. That God is ever faithful to us. God will keep his promises. God is always with us. That's true. But this also addresses, I think, our faithfulness to him. Because just as we are worn down in our awareness of God's love for us, our faithfulness to him is strained and stretched and worn away, so that there are times in our days when we don't think about him, when we're more likely to thank good luck or whatever it is, but that we remain faithful to him. And it's obvious. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. That the fruit of revival is personal righteousness. We got too many folks in the church, too many pastors in the pulpit who, we fit the definition. And notice I said we fit the definition of hypocrite all too well. We're play actors. We wear a mask. Come to church on Sunday, we got our Sunday mask on. We're not the same guy people saw on Saturday afternoon on the golf course or while we were fishing or whatever we were doing. We're not the same people had to work with throughout the week. On Sunday morning, we're nice. Righteousness, personal righteousness, means that we exhibit the character of Christ. We're Christ-like. Every day, all day, every circumstance. The fruit of revival is peace. Peace in our hearts, because we're at peace with God. The peace of God guards our hearts and minds. But peace also with one another. It is a tragedy when churches fight. Tragedy when churches split. A lot of churches, I'm the pastor of one who's experienced a split. Churches happen because of personal ungodliness in the church. Splits happen because of personal ungodliness in the church. Very rarely does a church split over matters of doctrinal truth, of Christian practice. They split over personal differences. That's not righteousness. That's unrighteousness. That's selfishness. That is the flesh. That is hypocrisy. Revival exposes all of that and sets it on fire. The fruit of revival is faithfulness springs up from the ground and righteousness looks down from the sky. How great is that? That wherever our foot falls, faithfulness springs from the ground. Wherever we go, righteousness rains down on us. That's the fruit of real revival. And then verse 12 says, yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness will go before him and make his footsteps a way. We live fruitful lives. We like to say we do things for God's glory. I'm just singing this song for God's glory. I'm just doing this for God's glory. I'm going to do this for God's glory. We build buildings to God's glory. But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus told us what glorifies his Father. He said, by this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit, that you be fruitful. The fruit of our lives. It's not what we produce consciously, deliberately, the fruit of the Spirit. Well, I will never produce the fruit of the Spirit by trying to be patient. It's passive. This is what he does in me because he has free reign in my life, because Jesus is Lord. You see, revival, the fruit of revival, is that it doesn't point to a preacher, and it doesn't point to a church, and it doesn't point to a program. It doesn't point to our efforts. It all points to Jesus Christ as Lord. He is exalted. When revival comes, Jesus will be so exalted. As he said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. And none of us will be able to take credit for it and say, well, it's because we did this. It's because God in his mercy and grace saw fit to visit us. That's revival. So I encourage you to pray for that. This is getting kind of long, isn't it? I encourage you to pray for that. Pray that God will visit us and he will grant us revival on his terms, and that he will be pleased by the fruit that we produce as a result of it. Hey, if you're able, we meet tonight at 6 o'clock at the church, Good Springs Baptist Church, the intersection of County Roads 609 and 660. You can't miss us. You find those roads, you can't miss us. Join us at 6 o'clock. We'll pray together. Bring your concerns. We'll pray with you. We won't dismiss you. And then you can join us Sunday morning. 10:30 is when worship starts. Be glad to have you. As I say every week in the Facebook post, we're saving your seat. We mean that. I hope you have a good day. I hope something I said is you find encouraging, you find challenging. God bless you. Have a good rest of this day, rest of the week. Look forward to seeing you soon.